Smaller towns in Australia are honestly so much better than the big cities, and here is why. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So I've been living in Australia for over 2 years now. I've travelled most of the country, been to pretty much all the major cities, and also travelled to quite a lot of smaller towns in Australia that a lot of people probably haven't heard of. And I'm making this video today because I feel like so many travellers just go to the typical tourist places. They go to the main cities and they never get out to the real Australia, to the smaller towns, to the lesser known places. I think it's such a big mistake because them people that don't go into the smaller towns are definitely missing out, and here is why. And this isn't to hate on Australian cities, because out of all the cities I've been to in the world, I think Australian cities are some of the best, but in my opinion they are a bit overhyped. So the first reason why smaller towns in Australia are better than the bigger cities is because the locals are so much friendlier. Now, whilst you can obviously meet friendly people in the city, it's not so much the case. In smaller towns, people have a lot more time with their lives. They live a lot more of a slower paced life. They've got time to chat to you, time to help you, and they're so much friendlier. In the city, everybody's head down on their way to work and aren't exactly going to stop and help you. You've also got more rich people, I guess, more like snobby people who don't care about you and don't want to chat to you. People are more genuine in the smaller towns. Honestly, I did a bit of travelling up in Queensland, pretty much did the whole of the East Coast in Queensland. Honestly, some of the people we met in the smaller towns were so helpful. We'd be looking lost for like 10 seconds on the side of the road and people would come over and instantly want to help, giving us recommendations, telling us where to go. Every small town, pretty much, we got that in. It's kind of rare you get that in the city unless you go and approach people yourself or it's someone like at work. But people are so much more genuine in the smaller towns, and I think whilst you're not necessarily going to meet more backpackers and like-minded people, they normally stick to the cities. If you're looking to meet very nice locals, then small towns are 100% the way to go compared to the bigger cities. When I say small towns, by the way, I don't mean like a little village. I mean anywhere that's kind of outside of your typical big cities in Australia. Point number 2 is nicer scenery. Obviously there is some amazing scenery in some of the big cities, particularly in places like Perth, when you've got these amazing beaches on your doorstep. In Sydney you've got things like the Blue Mountains. Obviously there is amazing scenery in the cities, but in terms of having amazing scenery directly on your doorstep, you've got to get out to the smaller towns to really have that on your doorstep. Most of the best places in Australia, nature-wise, are the more remote places. Beaches, when you get out of the city, are way nicer, and also there is way less people on the beach compared to the city. Hiking, national parks, honestly, the scenery when you get out to some of the more remote towns in Australia is incredible. And whilst Australian cities are very scenic, they definitely don't come close to some of the smaller towns that I've been to. Even just little towns like Bowen that I went to recently in Queensland had some of the most insane scenery ever. For such a small town to have all that on its doorstep is pretty cool. In the city, yeah, you can get out to the nice scenery, but it's a bit of a trek sometimes, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. The next reason small towns are better in Australia is they are unique and kind of have their own character, their own vibe. Whilst this is true with the cities as well, if you're looking at the CBD of most places, it's very similar. It's tall buildings, it's busy roads, it's offices, it's shops, it's restaurants. Every city is very similar. Obviously they have their own unique features, but for me, as you go around the world, a city's a city, do you know what I mean? They're very similar. Compared to the smaller towns where I feel like they're so much more unique. I've been to smaller towns in Australia which are like places I've never been anywhere. And after a while of traveling cities, it's like, as nice as they are, they do get quite boring. Smaller towns, they have their own unique vibe and their own unique things about them. And that's why I encourage people to travel to the smaller towns so much more than the city, because in the city, you can kind of predict what kind of experience you're going to have. You're going to get up to the same things. You're going to go to the shops. You're going to go out for dinner. It's about it. Do you know what I mean? You might go on like a night out, but in the smaller towns, there's a lot more variety, I find, particularly when it comes to like outdoor activities and nature. The fourth reason they are way better is they are cheaper than the main cities, particularly for things like rent. Now, it can still be expensive in the smaller towns, but living in places like Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, you're going to be paying considerably more than you would in the smaller towns. I've even found like food and stuff like that. Beer is way cheaper in the smaller towns. If you get like a beer in a bar, like a pint, it's so much cheaper than the main cities. But yeah, rent's the main one. The smaller towns are definitely a lot cheaper. So if you're looking to save money in Australia, that's why I encourage a lot of people to go to the smaller towns, because it's so easy to spend your money in the city. Transport, rent, everything is more. I'm in Cairns right now. I pay 50 cents per bus journey, spend no more than $5 a week. In Sydney, I would be paying probably nearly $50 a week. So the difference is massive. And Cairns isn't even a small town, really. It's like a mini city. The next one is, it is just a better overall experience, especially if you're working. I feel like if you're working in a small town, work doesn't feel as much like work. It feels like you're part of this experience. When I did my farm work, I lived in a smaller town called Bundaberg. We actually lived in an even smaller town called Bargara. And working there just felt like it wasn't real life. When you work in the city, it feels massively like you're part of the rat race, stuck in the system, stuck in the trap, going to your 9 to 5. It doesn't feel a massive amount different to what it would be like back in the UK for me, for example. Whereas working in a smaller town, it goes back to that unique experience. It doesn't feel as much like you're in the rat race going to your 9 to 5. It feels more like, yeah, you're working, but it's part of this overall unique experience that you're having. And that's why I encourage like remote work and regional work for everyone, above working a 9 to 5 in the city, even if the money is less. And point number 6 is, while there is probably less jobs in smaller towns, the competition is way less, because anyone that's got any kind of aspirations really in smaller towns, people that have grown up there, move to the bigger cities. And most of the time you find in the smaller towns it is a lot more old people that are retired and stuff. But what it does mean is the jobs that are available there is not much competition at all. And yeah, there's more jobs in the cities, but when you're there, you've got the local people that want that job. You've got people that have moved from the smaller towns to the cities. You've got travelers, backpackers. Everyone is going for these jobs. In smaller towns, the competition is way less. If you get an interview, you're pretty much going to get the job. Now, there are some reasons why I genuinely think smaller towns, mini cities, are a better option a lot of the time than the big cities in Australia. I'll leave on the screen right now a list of some smaller towns that I really recommend you go and either live in for like a short amount of time, do a bit of work, or just travel to. Most of them I've just traveled to. I haven't worked in that many smaller towns. But yeah, personally, I love Australian cities and the smaller towns. I think it's all amazing, but it's one of my top advice points, and that is for backpackers in particular, don't just stick to the cities, because they're fairly similar. And honestly, the majority of my best memories have come from these more unique experiences in the smaller towns. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're from Australia and you're watching this, let me know your thoughts, whether you prefer the smaller towns or the cities. If you're from the UK or anywhere else trying to move to Australia, or you're already here and you have any questions, then definitely let me know in the comments on that one. I've also released a Moving to Australia guide, which is available at the top of the description. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon with another video.